Well, hello everyone. This is Lydia, the podcast producer of this show, and we are in week 3 of our interview series with Brian Rill. Last week we talked about your role in your business, and this week we're going to jump right into talking about different roles within your business. And Brian Rill, who, just as a reminder, is a pretty successful multimillionaire, is going to share his mindset on money. Enjoy!
Welcome to the Agency Secrets podcast, where we help your independent agency gain insights into the secrets proven to build a thriving agency. With your co-hosts, me, Kyle Gorman.
And me, Justin Clements. And don't forget to reach out to us with any questions. Or if you have topics you would like covered in upcoming episodes, just let us know. You can learn more at agencysecretspodcast.com. That's agencysecretspodcast.com. And remember, be humble, stay hungry, and always hustle.
I use this as an example. Look at Apple, largest company on the planet, right? Trillions and trillions of dollars. They have a CEO. Tim Scott, is that his name?
Yeah.
He runs the day-to-day operations. He's a pretty smart guy, right? Mm-hmm. But he has a board of directors. You know what the board of directors do? They have different success filters from different areas of life, and they come together once a month or once a quarter, and they see, here are the problems, here are the things you're running up against, and here's our advice and input based on our filters on how you can succeed at a higher level. And Tim Cook takes their advice, and Apple's a $3 trillion company. Now, let me ask you something. If Tim Cook needs a board of directors, what makes you think you're smarter than Tim Cook and you can do it by yourself?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. You know, and that's one of the things that I wanted to touch on here too. I was actually just this morning doing a little study on Old Testament, Jonathan and David. And Jonathan was kind of the advisor, if you. He was the support role. Like, this guy's a potential leader, but he saw this potential in David and really kind of helped him. He was a kingmaker instead of a king. And something that you talk about in here that I think is so powerful, and I find it interesting because the greatest CEOs will say this, and yet the average owner, CEO won't accept it or believe it. And you talk about this in your book that, you know, if you see someone that's better than you at something, let them do that thing. If you aren't good at something, find someone that is good at that thing. Trust the people around you. Put the right people around you. You know, there's a pride, there's an ego, there's all these things that kind of get in our way of wanting to do that. But tell us, you know, and I know Justin kind of mentioned that book, Traction. You know, they talk about you have your visionary and you have your integrator, and you've got these people, you know, talking about Apple. You have a Steve Jobs, but for every Steve Jobs, there's a Steve Wozniak. That without him, Apple doesn't exist, you know, and Steve Jobs couldn't program anything. That's what Wozniak did. And so that's one of the things that I'm so glad you've included that as a, you know, kind of lesson in business, because I think we all need to understand to trust those around us and more importantly, even surround yourself with it. Be intentional about surrounding yourself, knowing who you are, finding those weak spots and putting other people in place. So those are lessons that you've learned over time. Tell us about kind of how you've learned that, where you figured that out. One of the things I love that you just said, like, look, I'm a builder. Love this part, love that part. Everything else is kind of just noise. Again, that's true self-awareness and knowing this is who I am. Instead of saying, well, I built this thing, I'm going to tell you exactly how you're going to run it, and you're going to do this and this and this and this. So how have you learned that over time, and what are some of the lessons that you've kind of picked up to know how important it is to have those people around you?
Listen, that attitude you just talked about is why most businesses either never grow, never succeed, or ultimately fail. And it's the ego of the CEO that gets in the way. And I go back to the Tim Cook has a board of directors, and yet you think you can do this all by yourself, right? One of the quotes in the book is the entrepreneur is both the most important and the least important person in that business.
Yeah.
Because basically, per Steve Jobs and Wozniak, an entrepreneur is useless without a team.
Right.
The team needs him to create vision and see and oversee at 30,000 feet. But without a team, who cares? I like to joke that in 1983, I thought that personal home computing would be the wave of the future, but I didn't do it. Right? Ideas mean nothing without a team behind you to execute on them.
Yeah.
So where did I learn that? Because I failed and failed and failed. And eventually I met a guy, Steve, who wrote the foreword in this book. And I decided to stop listening to myself and start trusting somebody else's opinion. And that's one of the stories in the book about I Have a Tattoo, one of the chapters.
Is that where you said in the book, if you don't have a success filter, you need to find someone who does and allow them to help you?
That's
The only
exactly
thing
right.
standing between you and success in this situation is your ego. Is that where you let Steve come in and become your success filter and help you with your success filter?
I think the defining moment for that, and I was moving in this direction because, I'm an insurance agent. We still have the agency and we're rolling along and we're doing, relatively successful to the world's eyes, but we really hadn't made a ton of money. I might be making $100,000. And my partner, Steve, over here had been making millions. And the story goes real quickly. We started this internet company and my CPA came in to see me after about 8 months and he said, you need to shut that internet company down. It's failing. You've lost $400,000. It's killing you. It's going to tank your insurance agency. And the next day, Steve walked in my office, a guy who's already a multi-millionaire. And he said, hey, we need to buy out these other partners and invest more money. And I said, Steve, our CPA was just here. He told me to shut you down. We're tanking here. And he said, Brian, listen to me. I'm telling you, this is going to work. You need to trust me. Now, I'm here in my mind, this ping pong ball, like quit, go, quit, go, quit, go. My filter is telling me to quit because it's not working. I can't see the future. I don't have the experience to know what he knows. And I sat there and stared at him for like 2 minutes, which seemed like an hour, sweating. Mind you, he's in tennis shoes and shorts and, a T-shirt. And I'm a successful insurance agent with my, all dressed up. And finally, I said to myself, you know what? Steve has done this and I haven't. So, Steve, I'm going to listen to you. I'm in. I said, I'm in. And he said, okay, I don't ever want to hear that again. And I said, okay. And that was like my defining moment. I'm going to trust Steve and his filter and not my own. And I
Sounds like that was a good call.
And I have a tattoo that says I'm in today because that reminds me of that moment in life. Because a year later, we did $6 million in revenue, then $18 million, then $30 million. And literally 18 months after that, we sold the company for $60 million. So if I had said no, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you today. I'd still be doing I have no idea what.
That's awesome.
And it scares me to think about that.
Yeah.
If I trusted myself, I would not have what I have today.
Has your ego, you talk throughout the book a lot about people's egos getting in the way, business owners wanting to prove to other people, and it's more about their ego, not letting a salesperson perform because, it hurts your ego, not letting other people control the business, their parts of the business they're better at, because your ego. Has there ever been a time where you struggle with your ego and any stories around like hard for you to swallow your pride and
that is never ending, Justin. Today, even though I wrote a book about it, quite frankly, this very book that you've seen the cover for the book, I had done a different cover and I was convinced it was the best. And I hired a publicist and she came in and the first thing she said is your cover sucks and your title needs to change. And I'm like, what? My ego kicked in. I'm like, no. I like my cover and I like my title. And she said, no, and here's why it won't work. Boom, boom, boom. This won't market. You're not getting any clicks on this. These phrases don't generate revenue and blah, 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 blah. We'll be a New York Times and bestseller, not New York, Wall Street Journal bestseller here in about 2 weeks, right? And after arguing with her, I finally thought to myself, what am I doing?
Yeah.
She's put 100 books on the Wall Street Journal USA Today bestseller list, and I've done 0.
Yeah.
And so I allowed her to take over. We changed it, and I love the way it's turned out. It's turned out amazing. So, yeah, I still struggle with that.
That's a great example. It's fresh, too, right?
That
so
just happened.
the book we're talking about, guys, that you need to go to Amazon or wherever you buy your books, The Dropout Multi-Millionaire by Brian Will. Kyle, what do we got next here?
One of the other things that I wanted to touch on, really the last thing that I wanted to touch on in this is you talk, a lot of lessons around money And it's important because as a business, we shouldn't apologize for making money. That's without money, there is no mission. And so tell us a couple of things maybe that you've learned in that. And I guess one of the things that I love about the way you've outlined some of that is just remembering that how important it is for us to be protective of that money, to make sure that we have some safety around that money. And again, I kind of say just being unapologetic about, like, we are here to make money. That's what a business is there to do, whether that's as a self-employed individual or whether that is as a business owner. Without that, you aren't providing for employees. You aren't providing a service to the people around you. So tell us just a couple of the lessons learned over the years about the importance of the money aspect of business, because it's like we all know, well, of course, money, but we don't necessarily treat it with some principles that we have in place around that.
So I'd throw a couple quick ones out at you. The ones that I learned, which I think is super important, there's a couple, but the scenario I use is this. Would you rather have $100,000 in cash in the bank and $100,000 of debt? Or would you rather have no debt and no money? Well, the answer is I'd rather have the cash and the debt, because if the check doesn't come in, if the back charges happen, if you don't get what you thought you were going to get, you can't go to the grocery store and tell the girl at the checkout counter, listen, I don't have any money, but I don't have any debt, so I need my groceries. Mm-hmm. She's going to say, nope, no cash, no groceries, go home, right? Mm-hmm. I'll accept some debt as long as I have a cash cushion to take care of me. Cash is always going to be the most important thing you can have. That's one. Two, and I learned this lesson back in my landscaping days. I think it's in the book. A professional baseball player here in Atlanta told me one day, he said, you know what, Brian? I don't invest my money. Now, mind you, he makes bazillions of dollars. Mm-hmm. He said, my money's sitting in T-bills. I pay cash for my houses. I pay cash for my cars. I have a safety net. I know that if anything happens to me, I'm okay for the rest of my life. So we titled this chapter, The McDonald's Safety Net. And what that means is I have enough cash set aside that if I lose my ability to generate income, I can work at McDonald's and maintain my lifestyle.
Yeah.
After you reach that safety net and you've got that, then you can go out and start buying things and doing, fun stuff. But that's two. And number three, even in your businesses, in your personal life, you've got to make sure you take care of yourself. Put enough money away for you that you're not going to get in trouble. Don't be a martyr.
That's good.
Martyrs didn't win. That's why they're martyrs. They're broke or dead.
That's a great point. Yeah.
I don't want to be a martyr. Yeah. So take care of yourself and take care of your family first.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of taking care of yourself so Scott Lingle, you know Scott Lingle. He was the VP over at United. He, I guess, worked with you. He's partners with me at Remodel Health, and I told him how excited I was. He read your first book. He said it was really good. Looking forward to getting his hands on your second book. I asked him if there's some stories about you or some questions I should ask, and he said that it would be cool to hear how you got started in insurance. Like you started working with I don't know if I can mention the guy's name, but
don't mention it.
With doing HSAs.
Yep.
And they were basically like radio ads or leads. Yep. And it's kind of what you said, like you learned from somebody and then you went on and did it better. So if you can talk about that, and I also want to hear about taking care of yourself with your bucket list. You've done Ironmans, is that right?
Yep.
Skydiving.
Yep.
And
Master, climbed mountains, ran with the bulls, Great Wall of China. I'm going into space. I just paid my deposit to go to space.
You're going into space?
Yeah, I'm going to do an Antarctic cruise in January on a private ship with some artist, can't say.
That's cool.
Oh my gosh! All right, so I want to. So all of that because you said I'm in.
All that because I said I'm in. Okay. I decided to trust somebody else's opinion in business over my own, who was more successful than me.
What all's on this bucket list? And how hard is it to do the Iron? Was it a full Ironman?
I know I did a half Ironman.
Okay. How hard was doing the half Ironman? Because I think you have to train like 2 or 3 hours a day or something like that, right?
Yeah, it took me 6 hours, 55 minutes. I beat my goal by 5 minutes. I was pretty proud of that. It's a mile and 1.2 in the water, 56 on the bike, and a half marathon.
Dang.
And I am not a runner, and I am not a swimmer. I'm actually not an athlete at all. I always joke that if you're coming down to the race to see me, don't worry about trying to get up front. By the time I get there, there's not going to be anybody waving, cheering us on.
Yeah, you just want to make sure there's some water left at the end.
I like to joke, one of my last ones, me and my buddy were running, and we were on the last mile. And when you run a triathlon, they put your age on your calf. This guy passed us, and I looked down, and he was 82.
Oh, wow.
And I told my friend, I said, I got to trip that guy. He can't beat me.
That's great. Oh, man, that's cool. So what else is on that list? I don't think you can trump going to space. But what
I
else?
just did that one yesterday. I'm excited about it. We're going to space in a balloon, 100,000 feet for 2 hours.
Wow.
What?
I can't wait for that one. That was going to be cool.
That's great.
I've had this. I had a friend tell me, you can do anything, but you can't do everything. And that's my problem. I want to do everything. So pretty much if it's out there and I see it and it's cool, I want to go do it. So I still have Kilimanjaro on my list. I did climb Mount Fuji with my kids. That one was fun. Did 4 of the 14ers in Colorado. Been shark diving, did all that. I've been on safari. I've done just all the little things people check off on their bucket list. I've done a lot of them. But if you know anything cool, let's go.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
If I can get my wife, so I got to get a safety net, and then my wife will let me sign off on going with you. Maybe not to space, but maybe a safari hunt or shark diving. But I would be totally down for all of those things.
Yeah.
And I think I could get some guys like from the industry that to go with us. But
Because going to space is an 8-person capsule, so just 8 of us, 125,000 a piece. Let's go.
Wow.
That's
fun.
wow, that's awesome.
What an experience.
We might have to have a follow-up podcast, Kyle, just on like the crazy stuff that Brian Will is doing, where he's going. Because if you've been in 25 countries and you're traveling around, you're doing shark stuff. Like I've been on a couple of mission trips, and there've been sketch situations in a controlled environment on mission trip. Like I can't imagine like the sketchy, this might not be the best place to be or the best time to be here across the world, because not every place is as safe environment as the United States.
My daughter's been more countries than me, and she's got some interesting stories.
Wow.
I bet.
I think what that tells me is I need to be more creative with my bucket list. Because I'm working on my pilot's license, which is on my bucket list, and I'm thinking, well, that's nothing compared to these other things. I gotta get to space. I'm gonna tell my wife next Christmas, I want you to sign me up to go to space. That's a better bucket list than just get a pilot's license.
I'm an instrument rated pilot. One of my favorite things to do.
Okay. I'm working on it now. I'm working on it now.
A couple planes. That's fun.
Yeah.
Back to your other quick story on working in. For the agency, and this will directly relate to some of your audience here, is I went to work for this agency, and I told you I sold those first 12 policies in the first 4 days, and suddenly he said, you're like in the top 1% of all sales Assurant Health in your first 4 days selling insurance. That doesn't make any sense. And I said, well, give me some more leads, and I kept doing it. And pretty soon I was producing 50% of the revenue for this agency, and they had about 15, 20 agents. And these agents would come to me and say, well, how are you selling so much? I'd say, I buy a lot of leads. Maybe I can't afford leads. I said, then you need to sell more, which means you need to buy more leads.
Yeah.
It seemed like a no-brainer to me.
Yeah.
So after about a month, he turns the yellow page. We had yellow pages back then. Yeah. Turns the yellow page on, goes to my phone, and I'm killing the yellow pages, just crushing it. So I go to visit my mom up in Tennessee, and I look at their yellow pages, and I'm like, I can put an ad in the Knoxville Yellow Pages book. So I go back down to the agency and I said, hey, so-and-so, I want to expand your agency into Tennessee. I'll take all the risk. I'll pay for all the ads, but I want to expand it. But the only thing I want is 4 more points on my license. 4 more points. You've still got another 12. And he said, no.
He does not have a tattoo that says, I'm in.
I'm in.
He said, talk to me in about a year. And I said, listen, I'm taking all the risk. I'm going to do everything. And I'm going to do it with or without you.
Yeah.
And he said, you can't do it without me. I have a lock on your contract. It's a funny story, right? So I call Assurant and I said, hey, can you give me a contract direct for 20 points? And they said, no, there's a lock on your contract. I hung up the phone. I had a bag phone. Remember the old bag phones?
Yeah.
I had a bag phone in my little purple car driving to an insurance appointment. And I remember I picked the phone back up and I called him and I said, will you give my wife a license? He goes, I'll give her a 25. Wow. Is she licensed? I said, she will be in 30 days.
Yeah.
And that's how my company started. And I sold it a year and a half later for $1 million.
Yeah. Was that the first time that the famous phrase "wife around" was developed? Because I've heard that.
She was 8 months pregnant, and I called her. I said, hey, you need to get your insurance license really quick. And she was like, what?
Yeah.
Great.
That's
awesome. A great story.
Alrighty, I really hope you enjoyed that section of the podcast with Brian Will. Tune in next week and you'll get to hear more of our amazing interview with Brian Will. Have a nice week.